All right, welcome back to another episode
Yeah.
of Take a Knee from the brand new Take a Knee Studios. Um,
I like your background, Scott. It
no,
looks
this is
good.
the Military Retirement Blueprint Studios. I forgot my YouTube channel is Military Retirement Blueprint, which we host Take a Knee and other military retirement related content.
Yeah.
And that's what this show's about. Mike and I have over the years spoken with, gosh, at this point, thousands of uh, senior officers and NCOs going through the retirement process. While
Yeah.
there's common briefings and common steps that happen. What we've discovered, of course, is that everybody's situation is different. Whether that's deciding what you want to do in post-military life or making financial or benefits decisions. That's what we specialize in. But then those other conversations that, of course, come up are also useful to this audience. And the big one, Mike, of course, and you always talk about finding the right fit. And
Mhm.
part of that requires kind of, well, who am I to fit into?
Yeah.
What is my piece of this puzzle? And we know the struggle of, your rank in job title when you're in the military. That's clear, and then therefore it's clear to you, and it's clear to those around you very quickly, and it makes that part of it pretty easy. And so when it comes to what they always say is translate your military skills to civilian skills, to as part of the military transition process. Does that account for the identity? Because while in uniform, you're following orders and you don't always
Yeah.
get to make the choices on what the identity is. I mean, hey, once you become a fighter pilot, you're a fighter pilot. But
Yeah.
at some point, we all know it's coming to an end, and we're going to have to make that choice. And whether it's leadership skills, like how do you really translate leadership skills? That ain't quite as easy as just putting it on a resume and having that new corporation put you in an equivalent job title.
It's
So,
it's really
yeah.
it is probably something that we all deal with. I don't think we realize it until we realize it, right? Like,
I'm every
well,
day, 15 years later, it's
yeah,
like a never ending thing.
yeah, it kind of is, right? I mean, especially if you were institutionalized, right, for a number of years. That's the word I would use, right? For 15, 20, 25, 30 or more years, right? And I think you can relate to this.
Mhm.
You can go, in the military and based on, the unit you're with, right? So patches or name tags or rank or even your awards, right, that you wear in your uniform. The point I'm making is you can walk into a room of complete strangers in the military environment and people immediately get a sense of who you are, where you've been, what you've done, right? Just by your uniform and your ranking and certain warfare designators and insignias, right? They kind of get that. That becomes to your point, Scott, right? That becomes your brand, right? That's who you are. And when we transition, it suddenly hits us. Oh my gosh, I'm going to walk into a room and nobody knows anything about me unless I know those individuals personally,
Mhm.
right? And that doesn't sound like a big deal, but there is a little bit of an identity crisis. Oh my gosh, who am I? Right? Was that who I was? Maybe, partially, sure. But is that all I am? I would say no, right? You just have to navigate your way to your next success. And one of the big struggles that our members, almost all of them, face is they ask the question, well, what can I do? And I go, well, you can do anything you want. But that's not helpful, right? I mean, it's just like, oh my gosh, I now have a million choices. I don't even
Yeah.
have to narrow this down. And our members really struggle with that. And sometimes to the point, Scott, I would make the argument that they're paralyzed. Like they almost can't even start because they just fundamentally don't understand where to start or how to start. And it all comes down to networking and having conversations, right?
Well, yeah, I actually call. I made a video about this. I'm just working on a new page on my website for this video, where I call that paralysis by analysis,
Yeah.
the decision permission trap, because all of a sudden you have to make a lot of decisions. Hey, we have to make a lot of decisions on active duty, but to some extent, you're either giving permission, but you're always getting permission before you're giving permission because of there's just somebody that it's going up, right? And now we have to get to the point where I have to create your own orders. Well, sure, but really you have to give yourself the permission to, I have to explore now. And that comes into, well, now we need to just be genuinely curious about what we need to learn about.
It really is. It's
And
learn and be
talking to
curious.
people and hearing stories, and you'll just pick it up like you did any other time. It's just, unfortunately, there's not an SOP around it. But yes, Mike. So that's what I wanted to chat about today. So the identity is one part of it, and yet we have to have an external persona, and we have to do that right away. And so this is the bigger crux of the problem is now we're entering 2024, 2025 coming up. We've already been 10, 15 years in this digital landscape, this online, whether it's actual work duties, but when it comes to how you present yourself in the professional landscape, like, LinkedIn's the obvious thing. But that just represents the bigger idea of what it means to represent yourself online and feeling comfortable doing that. Because really, for a lot of people, they might dabble in that while on active duty, maybe more so in later years. But I often hear from people I talk to is, one, just don't want to deal with that, or don't want to, just want to put it up like the resume, and not be engaged with it. But the other thing is, people are generally concerned about things like security clearances and not being able to have their persona online. And I understand, both those sides of it. Just the reality is the competition who we're going to be working or competing against for these careers in post-military life, the civilians, have been out there in this space for a lot longer time, dabbling in it. So how do we create a digital uniform, something that shows that name rank, but also gives you a sense of that identity online? You can still be you and continue to explore, but at some point we've got to use that. I don't like the word person, just like you don't like military transition. I don't like personal brand. So that's why I was like, I like this idea of a digital uniform. It's something where you create it and own it. And so, what would be, when you hear that? I mean, obviously we're talking about the idea of a personal brand. What are some of the things that you're talking about or teaching or seeing as lessons learned? And then I want to give you kind of my thoughts.
No, and I like the way you phrase it, right? Your digital uniform, right? Maybe brand is a overused, common descriptor, right? But I do like, digital uniform, right? That is really what we're talking about, right? It's establishing who you are in your career progression, right? In this next phase. And so I think the way you described it, it's not uncommon for our members to shy away from social media, right? I certainly, if I go back in my own experience, right, I just wanted nothing to do with social media.
I would still rather not. Yeah. I mean, it's
you could make that argument, right? I mean,
right. We understand.
But we do talk our members through this, and a little bit, it takes a little bit of time to have the discussion, but we reinforce into our members there is an importance to have some type of uniform in this new world, right? A social media uniform. And the way we describe it like this is, when individuals step into this new career progression phase, right, I explain it exactly like this. I just say, hey, look, I want everybody to realize you, right? You are members. You are the product that they are looking for, right? The talent acquisition, the recruiters, the hiring managers, and these social media are the tools they're using. You see what I'm saying? Like I'm saying, hey, you're the product that everybody's looking for, and these are the tools that they're going to be looking for you with. So if you are not findable or discoverable on these tools, do we think you put yourself at some amount of a disadvantage? Yes. How much? It's tough to quantify, right? But we can look at our members analytically, right, with our new data and our dashboard and our stats. I can tell you in a recent grouping that I put together, a 3-year look back, right, of all of our Navy members. And I can tell you 99% of them had a LinkedIn profile. How do we know that? We check it before everybody shows up. I mean, and the majority of those individuals would say they found some value from having a LinkedIn profile, whether that was a tool to assist them in doing a deep dive on an individual or a company or an industry, or whether or not that was somebody found them, right, through use of one of these tools that led to a follow-on conversation. There's some value in there. Now, I'm very quick to say, look, I'm not saying that our members will never get a job without a social media profile. That's not what I'm saying. But do we think you're at some amount of a disadvantage? Yes. And we can attack this conversation from lots of different, directions. As a hiring manager, once I was done looking at your resume and you ended up in the keep pile, I'll tell you the very next place I wanted to go was social media, because I wanted to see more of the same. I wanted to continue to build that connection. Before I'm going to spend money and funds and time to bring you to a face-to-face engagement, and in some instances, I'm flying you cross country, right? And I'm going to buy you a hotel room. Man, I want to get this connection. I'm like, hey, could you really be a part of the team, right? Yeah, I was already interested from looking at your targeted resume, but man, I just now need to get that little bit extra insurance, right? That, hey, you're a good pursuit. And I get that, or I can get that largely from a social media uniform, right? More information on who you are in this new space. Does that make sense? What do you think?
Yeah, no, absolutely, because that's kind of what I've been getting at is, or want to get at is the idea of the whole point is just to attract attention. If like you said, these hired managers, they want your members because they're the high quality individuals. So we just got to make yourself more easily found.
Yeah.
And that's what this opportunity is it's never been easier to make yourself found by the people who are going to be, or more likely to be, that perfect fit.
Right.
Like, you can now control those variables, and but it takes new sense of self to put yourself out there, or engage online, use these tools in a way. It's a learning curve for sure, but it also requires new skill sets,
Sure.
practice, testing, experimenting, and deciding which version of that you want to use and be. But what I've learned is you can carve out your own small corner of the internet for whatever purpose, and basically set up lots of resumes and job interviews, versions of yourself that live in perpetuity, whether that's via a social media tool or a video or a publishing platform.
Right.
There's just so many ways to do it. And then the process of building that skill set requires you to explore out and network with lots of different individuals and kind of see what other people are doing. You end up talking to them, and you end up kind of maybe learning about career fields or areas that you never thought about before. And I just think that when those who are engaged in some version of this, it's essentially publishing or media,
Yeah.
but it's for yourself, because now that's what the digital aspect of this is. Everybody can be your own media.
Yeah.
But you don't have to be famous like at all. The whole new thing of being a micro, you can be an influencer per se if you are offering a service or providing a value, but you can also just be a networker and not even have an external brand. You're just using these skill sets. So I think this is a new world. There's no college degree for this. There's no standard training program. That definitely doesn't exist in the military transition
I agree.
programs or
I
processes.
agree.
And yeah, sure, here's a class on how to do a LinkedIn profile and stuff. But what I've
Yeah,
been
there's so much. It's like what you're articulating, Scott. So
Mhm.
much more than that, right? I mean,
Right.
wouldn't you agree? I mean, it really is so much more than that, right? We don't get these skill sets in the military, and I think we could probably go back, arguably, for a good reason. We did come from the world of security clearances. We did come from the
Yeah.
world of, by design, we need to be careful about the information that we have and how we share it.
Yeah.
So we
And I don't know
just
an answer for that problem as well. I guess every situation is going to be unique.
No, and the way we talk about it is when the time is right, the time is right, right? And that will come for everybody as they approach their own career progression, right? I mean, for example, when I stepped into my own career progression, Scott, I did not have a LinkedIn profile. I didn't have a social media uniform. I didn't have any of that. But I very quickly realized, wow, I am missing out. And I would love to tell you that I solved the problem myself. No, the reality was people were asking me, hey, Mike, why don't you connect with me on LinkedIn? Hey, Mike, do you have a profile? Hey, Mike, do you, all these questions. Hey, did you hang your resume on your LinkedIn profile? I'll just go there and check it out. Hey, I would love to see, and I realized, oh my gosh, I didn't have any of that, right? I didn't have any of that. And so it was reinforced in me, right? And for me, while I stepped in at that time, if I could have gone back and done that again, I would have loved to have turned that effort, right? I would have loved to have been in front of it a little bit and stepped into the environment with that already well established, right? And now I think that's going to be a different timeline for everybody. Does that mean that I should have built it a year prior? Maybe I should have been dabbling in it. Is that 6 months prior? Maybe, something like that. The point is, when I stepped in and started having discussions with companies and industries and other people, I was behind. Old term that I would use from a former life, I was behind my shot timeline, right? I was on the trailing edge of this. I wasn't in front of it, right? And so that timeline is going to come and it's going to be unique for everybody. But I want to go all the way back to what we started the conversation with, right? And it was many of our members, and I'm very reluctant to say all of our members or none of our members, right? I would say in this case, many members, if not almost all, I would say, pretty darn close to all. They all step in, or many of our members step into their career progression. And Scott, there is a sense of anxiety. It's like, oh my gosh, who am I? Right? I was this person in this uniform with these, competencies and capabilities and this history and this rank and this authority. And that's kind of who I was. But now I don't have that anymore. Who am I now? Right? That was my active duty uniform. To your point in this discussion, what is my social media uniform? Like, what is it? And not to use an overused term, brand, but what's my social media uniform? What is that? Mm-hmm. And individuals need to understand that you can leverage this into having discussions, informational discussions, to help you identify your path. And it really comes down to line of questioning. And Scott, this will resonate with you. And what we tell our members, hey, when you're first meeting people, in other words, I encourage our members, I go, Mike, I have no idea what I want to do. I don't know where I want to go or anything. I'm going, great. Get out and start having some conversations, right? Try your new life on for a good fit. Try it on for size. Take it for a test drive, right? You're not going to buy a car without taking it for a test drive. Get out there and do this. And they kind of look at me and they go, what are you talking about? And I go, it comes down to line of questioning. If I wanted to do what Scott Tucker was doing, right, or I wanted to learn more about it, right, the first conversation I would have with you, Scott, wouldn't be, hey, tell me how do you do a podcast? Tell me how to get involved in, survivor benefit plan, build your, the beeps and squeaks and the hard stuff. The first question or line of questioning I might go is, hey, Scott, can you tell me what led you through your own career progression to arrive here? You with me on the line of questioning? The next question I might ask you would be something like, Scott, what's the most enjoyable part of your day? Hey, Scott, what frustrates you about your current engagement and your role and responsibility? Hey, Scott, could you see yourself doing this 5 years from today? Right? Those probing questions around fit, right? We're talking around fit. And then once I start to narrow the scope around fit, then I'm going to say, hey, Scott, I see that, US VetWealth has posted a position description and you're looking for an ops analysis. Can you talk a little bit about the specifics of the role and responsibility? Now, I've already assessed this industry and this company as a good fit for me. Now I want to start deep diving the role and responsibility to see if my hard and soft skills are actually a good fit. My whole line of questioning before I ever get to that part is, what do you enjoy about your day? How did you arrive at this, Scott? You and I have a very similar background. Did you find this to be a good fit for you, or did you have to grow into it? Right? Those probing questions. And I tell our members, don't be paralyzed. Don't stop. Get out there, have these conversations, right? But it's the line of questioning initially. Initially, it's about, what do you enjoy about what you do? How did you find success there? Tell me about your experiences, right? It's different.
That, again, if what we always say is no matter what business you're in, and I think finding a job is a form of a business, you're finding a source of income, you're finding a client, right? So no matter what, in small business world, we say no matter what business you're in sales and marketing. You've got to find a way to promote your thing. And
I love that about you. You're always big on that. You always remind our members, everybody's in sales, right?
Yeah, it's not a bad word. It's yet like anything else, it can be used incorrectly, right? So you got to learn to sell yourself, and that's fine. But the line of what they always say in sales is, ask the right questions, and really you're looking for those emotional connections. So what you're laying out there is just so spot on that, and really it's not trying to, people think that these are sales tactics. It's like, no, it's just genuinely asking a question that's going to allow the person to share more than just that. What do you do for work? Oh, I do this. Exactly. And that's where everybody gets stuck, and you put them in a bad spot, and then everything kind of gets stuck. And so my question for you is, outside of I'm talking to a hiring manager or somebody at the company, and I kind of know there's a job, but more in the sense of the 30 cups of coffee, just general networking conversations. What are some of the question that came from mind to me to ask in a situation like that would be, what would you go back and tell yourself, 3 years ago, right when you were going through your retirement process, knowing what you know now, what would you go back and tell yourself? So what kind of questions in that scenario? Just the more, hey, I'm curious, I want to see what's out there, just in general, hey, what was your experience? I think a lot of the questions would be similar, right?
They are. And again, I think it's such a multifaceted response and discussion. I love that we're kind of working our way in this conversation here, because it is so important. Scott, this is absolutely a hurdle that all of our members stare at. And some just plow into it, some artfully navigate it, but everybody has to go through this and over this. And I just love the discussion. We could spend so much time on it. One of the things that we're working so hard here is you've heard me talk about Blue Water Digital and our ability analytically to look at a lot of different information on what our members' experiences are in transition. Well, one of those things, members come to us, and it really just I don't want to say it makes me sad, but when members just show up and they go, Mike, I was let's just say I was an aviator and I worked doing several different programmatic type kind of roles and responsibility while I was active duty. So therefore, Mike, the only thing I can do when I get out is go into the defense industry and support this program for this widget that I was proficient at using when I was wearing the uniform. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You are so valuable above and beyond that. But Scott, it's that saying, I only see as far as I do because of where I'm standing, right? I just want to put them on a pedestal so they can see over the horizon and go, you're so much more valuable than that. And part of making that point to them is I can now analytically go to them and say, hey, do you realize that now that we're approaching 400 members in the Blue Water Network? Think about this, 400 06s, 05s, 80% Navy, 20% other services to include Army, Air Force, like all senior leaders out here. 33% land in the commercial or contract, or not commercial, or what I want to say on the civil side. Like 33%. Think about that. Like 33% are working for Adobe, Xerox, Johnson & Johnson, Apple, Microsoft, Google, Meta, Amazon. Like, doesn't have anything to do with the defense industry or government contracting. I said 33%. So don't limit yourself in your thinking. And oh, by the way, if you want to talk to them, I'm happy to connect you. You can have a conversation so that you can ask that line of questioning. How is it that you navigated to this place? What is it that initially drew you to this industry and company, right? And analytically, that helps. I can say another 33% land in defense industry, right? Or aerospace industry. Or I could say, hey, 25% land at government contracting, right? Those companies that are a little bit smaller in scope and scale. And 9% if you want a civil service job, a GS 1415 job, whatever. We have 9% of people do that or the other, that pursue something nonprofit or something in the venture capital private equity world, right? 9%. So analytically, I can just say, look, it's not impossible. When I say you can do anything, here it is. Mm-hmm. People are already doing it. I'm not just trying to throw something out there for a conversation. I'm saying people are actually doing these things.
Right. Let me ask you this.
That helps. I think that helps, right?
Oh, yeah, because it gives you, okay, at least now I got a focus to go to talk to. So let me ask you this. How many, and I don't think this is a question you probably got data on, but how many come to you and say, Mike, I want to do a 180? Like, I just want to do something completely different than whatever I was doing in the military. Does that happen?
It does. People come to us and
I don't know what that looks like, but I just want to do a 180.
Well, this is what they say. They go, I'm not really sure what I want to do, but let me tell you what I don't want to do.
Ooh, that's
and that's equally as valuable. I think you'd agree, right? I mean, hey,
oh yeah,
I know what I don't want to do. I don't want to do what I was doing in active duty. I don't want to support these programs. I already know I can do these things. I'm up for the adventure, right? I don't want to do that, but now I'm not sure what I do want to pursue, but I know it's kind of over here somewhere, right? And I go, that's a great place to start, right? Knowing what you want to do or what you don't want to do is just as important as knowing what you want to do, right? And that ultimately it helps to narrow down your pursuit sector, right? Hey, these things I think are a good fit for me, and I want to pursue these things, right? And now you start targeting them and having conversations with people that are there or were there, right? Looking for those opportunities, right? And engage in it, right? And I just love when our members get this, right? Blue Water is a very, targeted approach across the board. In other words, hey, you're a senior leader. Why are you going to give away your decision-making authority? And so many of them do this. And I'll use the SAC, right, as an example. Going to a job conference, and our members will do no homework, and they will step into this like a third grader on going to recess. I'm on a playground, and I'm going to stand here until somebody likes me. I mean, think about it, right? I mean, I'm going to go to a job conference. I'm going to stand here until somebody comes up and goes, hey, my name is Mike. Hey, yeah, okay, my name's Scott. Hey, Scott, tell me about yourself. Hey, hey, yeah, okay. And all of a sudden I go, wow, you like me, I like you. And now all of a sudden, yeah, your company sounds great. And sure, I'll go there. I don't know anything about your company. I haven't done anything. You've just been nice and we've had a conversation, but now I feel valued. Now I feel justified. And now I want to go work for you. Oh my gosh. Right. And I tell our members, and the way I describe it is, hey, that may be a great opportunity. I don't discount that, but you owe it to yourself to prove it to yourself. Do the deep dive.
Guess what the recruiters are good at? Selling.
Exactly.
Selling their company.
Exactly right. They're selling, Scott. That's exactly
right. If I low hanging fruit, if because they're good at saying, oh, well, what are you looking to do? Oh, I'd like to do something like this. Well, guess what we have? We got that. We definitely. I mean, hell, it's like when I got recruited in the Army, I remember they were telling me you could play all sorts of sports. And I was like, oh yeah, there's sports teams. I was like, oh, okay, cool. I was like, not going to be on the all Army sports team.
It's a great way to describe it, Scott. You're absolutely right. It is sales, and you can fall prey to that. And again, I acknowledge it may be a great thing, but I encourage our members. I go, then prove it to yourself.
Well, and the thing that comes to that situation is there's a way to still go to those types of events and then just be more strategic about it, and there's tactics around it. So. Mike, that's kind of what I wanted to, like with Trevor and I, when we were on our drive yesterday, we talked a lot about those with a focus point on what about those people who do want to do a 180? Like, what is the path for that? And then maybe those people aren't quite thinking about doing a 180, but maybe they're thinking maybe they want to do that down the road, or what could they glean also from helping structure some sort of, how do you do the 180? How do you start that exploratory process of essentially building the digital uniform, the social uniform? I like social uniform as well.
Yeah.
To start that networking process, because it's going to be very different than someone who's saying, oh, I'm cool with doing something similar. But even the people doing something similar, maybe if they use some of those 180 tactics, they find a better fit. Because really, if you're going 180, you're really forcing yourself to figure out that identity thing. Ain't going to be quick, but at least you're giving yourself the permission to do it. And so Trevor and I have been talking about, and you and I've been talking about ideas around this for a couple months. But I think what we want to do is put together a gang. Essentially a mastermind to explore what would that look like, and get together on, it's going to be all things media, publishing, social media / networking strategy / how do you go to conferences? How do you find this stuff? Hey, what did you learn? And we're doing it because we've got a lot of things we're publishing and trying to get out there new for 2025, and just a number of people in our circles that want to start their kind of own thing. But I also know a lot of the retirees we talk to might like a little bit of extra strategy on how to do a LinkedIn thing without having to feel like they're going ape shit on it. Maybe there's ways to do this strategically, and there are, is what I've learned. So I'd like to share some of that stuff, but also learn in the process. So I'm putting it out there in the ether to say, like, we're gonna do something like this. We're looking for kind of beta, testers to join the group, but kind of a once a week Zoom call type thing. But we're putting that together, and if anybody's hearing this and thinks that sounds interesting, wants to learn more of the idea,
it is very much a challenge, right? And it's arguably one of the first challenges members will bump into. Wow, where I step into a world and people are telling me I can do anything, narrowing that down to what do I want to do? Okay, that's part of it. And then you have to ask yourself the question is this a good fit for me? Right? And so for the listeners, you're probably going, what the hell are you talking about, Mike? And yeah, just because you may want to pursue something, step one in the process, that's not step one. And I just want everybody listening to this to realize what Scott and I are talking about here is step 2 and 3 in the process. The very first process, the very first thing you need to do before you even start stepping into understanding, what are my options and what do I want to pursue? You got to get a little bit introspective, right? You got to say, what are the things that I want to make sure that I preserve in my life? Mm-hmm. Well, I'm never going to leave the city of Las Vegas. I love this town so much, so I'm going to stay here. I have aging parents who are located in this area, so I got to stay in this location. I know I have this financial requirement, coming up for me, so I have to pursue this type of conversation. In other words, we call them big rocks. What are these big rocks in your life? And then once you figure all that stuff out, now you go, okay, I'm going to put this stuff, back here in my backpack. And now what's out there? And then when I start narrowing down, right, what it is I want to pursue, not very first, but one of the early questions, you go, wow, I'm really interested in this. I want to do this. You go, okay, if I do this thing, am I going to be able to live in Las Vegas? Mm-hmm. Am I going to be able to stay close to where my parents are located? Am I going to be able to reel in this amount of compensation because I know I've got these life hurdles facing me, right? Does this preserve this? And if it does, it may be a good fit. If it does not, it might not be the best fit. You now have a decision. Hey, either these big rocks aren't as important to me as what I thought they were, so I can change my big rocks, or nope, I have to preserve the ability to support these things. Hey, this is interesting to me, but it's not a good fit. I need to find something else, right? And understanding that, so you have alignment in your pursuit, that's very important. Scott, we've started to track this analytically. I can tell you early on, for our first 3 years here at Blue Water, about 2 or 3% of people weren't doing that. They chose poorly. They would step into a job and realize 3-4 months after they've been there, oh my God, this is not a good fit, and I'm not going to do this, and I have to step back out, right? And right. Think of the amount of time that is taken up in that pursuit. Here's a little bit of an alarming stat, right? Over the last 12 months, I've watched that 2 or 3% go to 5 or 6%, right? That number is increasing. And I'm like, why is that? I'm not 100% sure why that is increasing. I'm not sure, but I still think it comes down to understanding step 1, what's important to me? What are my big rocks in my life? Step 2, what is available out there? Step 3, is it a good fit? Can't skip these steps, right? You can't just go straight to the end and pick something. Maybe you get lucky, maybe you don't, right? But the point I'm going to make is don't skip these steps, right? There's a forcing function in life. If you hate this thing, if you do not get out of bed and look forward to making this contribution, if this is not fulfilling, if this thing does not preserve these big rocks in your life, you will not stay.
Yeah,
we know that. you will not stay. And I don't care if they're giving you $1 gajillion a year, you won't stay. So don't skip those things in life.
Yeah.
Does that make sense? I mean, I get kind of passionate about these things, but
no, well, of course. And I mean, ultimately, the reason the numbers increased might have to do for other factors as well. Of course, there's the economy, which also means that, if we haven't done the diligence to know whether or not the position they're putting you in is going to be the first one they downsize, then it wasn't a good fit. So that's another consideration to consider as well. But no, Mike, I think that's a great way to wrap it up, and be passionate about it. It's like,
no, I love it, Scott. I love your language on this, right? I mean, this is your digital uniform, right? That's exactly what it is. And I love it. So
yes, sir.
Thanks for putting it in terms where we can all understand it.
Yes, sir. All right, man. Well, what's coming up? You got a networking event tonight?
Yeah, we do. We're going to meet over at Warriors Tap House, right, for our end of year, right? This is our quarterly networking event. So hope to see you and Jen there, right? So hopefully you guys can make time.
Ugly Christmas sweater party, or
it's not really labeled as an ugly Christmas sweater party, but if you want to wear an ugly Christmas sweater, I think you'll get a lot of golf claps. I love that.
I'll have to find one.
Yeah, no, I think we've got good registration, good turnout. We're looking forward to that. We're seeing some interesting engagements already for 2025, Scott. It's going to be an interesting year. We are supporting a lot of organizations at their request, and that's a little bit new territory for us, right? I love the fact, and just as we built Blue Water. We built Blue Water in support of our members, and 100% of our ability and support goes to our members, because we know ultimately if our members are successful, we will be successful, right? And I love that. We're not knocking on doors selling Blue Water to anybody, right? We bring results, positive impacts to our members, and they find success with the approach, the network, the keen insights, everything we're bringing to the table. And then we collectively grow the network and our throughput together, right? And I love that the fact that they go back, and now the landscape, large organizations, within DoD are coming to us and saying, hey, we've heard such great things about this. Will you come and do this for us, right? And that's a completely different space to be in. Whereas, hey, you're knocking on somebody's door, trying to get 4 or 5 PowerPoint slides in front of somebody, trying to convince them, right? We don't do that. That's not what we do, right? Take it or leave it. We're changing people's life. We're raising the bar. We're delivering results. We're going to be so damn good at this that you can't ignore us, right? That's our whole approach, and our members are supporting us in that pursuit.
Like the buffalo into the storm.
That's it. Cool. How about you, man? Talk to me about end of the year. You guys just wrapping up, right? I know Jen did her last podcast the other day. I saw that one. She's doing a good job, right?
Yep. We're gearing up for next year. Got some things coming out with the Rosie Network we're excited about. And really, I've been doing some major updates on our website, really getting our content, try to make it helpful. I mean, that's the whole idea. It's like whether you're just trying to make decisions on whether or not to do the SBP, and you just want different perspectives on making that decision. That's what the info's for. But the whole point is so you can make a confident decision. Yeah. And so we got all sorts of education, on those topics about pension benefits and life insurance specifically. And so excited to kind of have that revamp come out, and a few other things on the fire. Can't quite talk
That's all good.
Yet. Yeah.
All good. Hey man, maybe if we do get close to the end of the year, we got to get our Christmas, a few Christmas decorations. I got to wear like a little Santa hat or something. We can get our Santa hats on, Scott. We can wear them on the next episode.
That's a good idea. I actually had one. I have no idea. Oh, well, they're like $2. I get one at 7-Eleven for $2 probably.
Yeah, there you go.
So
it's always a pleasure, sir. Always a pleasure.
No, you bet. All right, everybody. We will see you next time. Not quite Christmas next week, so we'll probably be back next week.
Excellent. Okay. Talk
All
soon.
right.
See ya.
Take care.